What is happening? This is somebody like you, and what we're talking about today is self-love, why it's important, and how to actually do it. So stay tuned and let's learn how to love ourselves. What is happening? Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about self-love. And as we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to Instagram user Shako Minza for actually inspiring this very podcast episode. She DM'd me on Instagram, and the best part about it is you can do exactly the same. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, and if you want to hear about it, I'll talk about it. So once again, thank you so much for the podcast episode idea, and let's get this thing started. So what is self-love and why is it so important? Well, self-love is exactly what it sounds like. It's learning and conditioning yourself to actually love yourself instead of hate yourself. Because we grew up in a time where you had to beat yourself up over every small wrongdoing that you felt like you ever did, whether that be the self-negative talk, whether that be public shaming yourself, or anything along those lines. So what that really looks like is turning that self-negative talk into self-positive talk. That sounds too simple to be true. It's almost because it kind of feels like it is. It's literally changing the way you talk to yourself. So when you mess something up and you constantly start berating yourself and calling yourself dumb, stupid, all the other probably explicit words you say to yourself, flip those things around. For instance, I call myself a silly little goose. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I've been doing that for almost a year now, and it has changed the way I talk to myself in what we'll call those crisis moments. When something goes wrong, I no longer call myself a dumbass, a stupid piece of ever. You know what I'm talking about. I now go, you silly goose. And it makes me laugh at myself instead of judging myself. And in that crucial moment, it goes from potentially ruining my day, my week, maybe even my month because something so minute went wrong, and it makes me laugh at myself and almost appreciate the silliness in which life kind of is. Because let's be honest, things are gonna go wrong, and they're probably gonna go wrong pretty frequently. So what's the best way to counter things going wrong? Don't let them affect you and your energy. So if you constantly just start calling yourself a silly goose or whatever phrase you would like to use, you're going to change the narrative in which your story is being written, because those negative things are no longer affecting you. They're almost making you laugh and having a positive result instead of that negative one. Now, why is that so important? Well, that positive self-talk and that positive self-love is so important because once you learn how to love yourself, you then understand what you will and will not accept as forms of love from other people. So many of us try to get into romantic relationships, even friendships, and we don't know what love looks like for us. We watch romantic comedies, we read books, but we don't know what that looks and sounds like to us. So by learning how to love ourselves, we learn what we can expect or we can look for in a romantic partner or even a friendship. Because so many times we end up throwing these darts at this dartboard of love. That's a sweet new band name. We end up taking the random thing that feels good for 3 months. Instead, let's reverse engineer this love and teach ourselves what feels good to us. That way, when that comes along, it's almost like connecting dots instead of throwing darts at this dart. And let's be honest, what happens in these romantic novels and romantic comedies, or just overall romance as it's publicized, isn't always the case, because what can be love and romantic for me can be completely different for you. And I think that's what we need to learn for ourselves, is we need to find out what makes us tick instead of relying on other people and relying on social networks and environments to teach us what love is. If we constantly rely on other people to teach us what love and self-love looks like, we're going to get caught up in judging ourselves in comparison to them all of the time. And that's the next thing on why self-love is so important. We have to learn to accept every version of ourselves, even if right now we're not the happiest version of ourselves. It's teaching us and nudging us the direction in which we want to go. For example, if you get caught up on things that happened in the past and you're not learning those lessons, they're just going to keep repeating themselves. So honor that feeling of not being happy with that version of you and learn to accept and move on from it. Because once we learn those lessons, that's when the healing process begins. And believe it or not, self-love is a tremendous healing process. So whether it be your looks, your image, personality traits, certain habits you have, learn to embrace them. And because remember, we can change for the better and change for the version of us that we want to become at any time. There's no starting line, there's no finish line. It's every day you work towards that version of you that you want to love, that you want to become. Because at the end of the day, remember, this is all about learning to love ourselves. So now that we have a good understanding of what self-love looks and feels like, let's learn how to practice it. And believe it or not, you actually have the first lesson down already. It's stopping that self-negative talk. Now, let's go into a little bit of detail about this, because self-negative talk is a little bit more than just stopping yourself from calling yourself a dumbass and just switching that to being a silly goose. What that means is celebrate yourself on things that may have taken you weeks to do and you got it done. Celebrate yourself. Pat yourself on the back. Tell yourself that you are proud of yourself, because those little celebrations over time become huge accomplishments. Remember, little circles create big change. So if you're looking for big change all at once, you're only going to be satisfied when that end result happens. But if you celebrate the little things that happen along that journey, that adventure, all of a sudden you're celebrating yourselves hundreds of times before you get to this end goal. And what's one way to keep going along your goal? Celebrating yourself and feeling good along the way. Let's break this down real quick. If you were working for a boss that constantly called you dumb, stupid, incompetent, all of the other things, would you want to continue working for that boss for very long? The answer is probably no. So let's look at it from an outsider's point of view, as if we were a friend or a boss talking to ourselves. We want to practice love, kindness, empathy, encouragement, celebrations of when we get things done, celebrations of when we learn lessons. That is what's going to keep us going and enjoying this process, because goals are wonderful. But if you're constantly beating yourself up all of the time just to get to them, that's not loving the process. And honestly, we're meant to enjoy this adventure, enjoy this journey of life. So by celebrating ourselves and cutting out that negative self-talk, you're going to start loving yourself, loving this journey so much more, and amazing things are simply going to just start falling into place for you. Another great way to practice self-love is to give yourself permission to actually love yourself. Yeah, that's right. Tell yourself that you give yourself permission to love you. Because all of this time, we've almost been taught that we are our own worst enemy. That's a cliche for a reason. So what we need to do is tell ourselves that it's okay to be loved by me. Now, my absolute favorite part of my self-love journey is meditation. Because what meditation teaches me, and hopefully will teach you, is how to slow down that chaotic mind. Because once you slow down that chaotic mind and you become more present and grounded with yourself, you're going to start to see that things are happening for you instead of happening to you. I'm going to say that one more time. Things are happening for you instead of to you. And that's such a crucial lesson to learn along this self-love journey, because once you get in the mindset that things are happening for you, all of these little inconveniences or big heartbreaks are nudges to learn lessons and continue growing and evolving. So once you create that mindset that I'm no longer the victim, I am essentially just here to learn these lessons and continue to grow and evolve and better me for me, your entire world is going to change. And the coolest thing about meditation is it's not what you think it is. Meditation isn't just sitting in a quiet room and trying to block all of these intrusive thoughts from coming into your mind. Meditation takes so many different forms and can look different for everybody. For instance, I can only meditate for 10 to 20 minutes while I sit there and try to make my spiritual connection with my spirit guides and the universe, essentially, while other people use that meditation while they're walking, while they're sitting by a lake and listening to music. It's about quieting your mind, not stopping the thoughts from coming into your mind. That's healing. Because as we are on this self-love and this healing process, we're going to learn that we're never going to be able to stop these thoughts or stop these things from happening. It's how we process these thoughts. And what does meditation do? It teaches you how to process and look at thoughts from an objective point of view, instead of feeling as if you're the victim of these thoughts and these thoughts control you. So as you're on this self-love journey and learning all of these new things about you, understand that you're never going to figure it all out at once. And that's why we have to celebrate those little circles, because as we continue to grow and we continue to evolve, we're going to continue to learn more about ourselves, and we're going to change. And once we change, we're going to require new love. We're going to require new things. We're going to require to start this all over again sometimes, because maybe we didn't like the person that we were, and we chose to start becoming that better version of ourselves for us. All right, I wanted to say thank you for hanging out. Thank you for stopping in, and thank you for taking this first step in that self-love journey and starting to become your own best friend, becoming a version of you that you've always dreamed about being, and learning to take it easy on yourself sometimes, because believe it or not, this thing called life is really difficult sometimes, and you're freaking doing it. So thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, support any way you can, because that will mean the absolute world to me. So thank you, and I will catch you on the next video. Take care.